And people say we're boring. So good morning to all of you. I'm going to probably echo what's being told, but again, this may be, you won't hear it enough. I know you won't hear enough. Congratulations on winning your election. Welcome to county government, and thank you for your public service. You're taking on a very difficult job. We know that. We work with counties. We understand the responsibilities and some of the thankless work that you do. And your citizens don't always realize until it's missing how vital this important, the roles that you play. And there's, we try to educate, you try to educate, but I know you don't always get thanked when something goes right. You'll probably hear about it when something goes wrong. As Christina said, I'm a director. We have a director's unit at the State Board of Accounts, and we specialize. Our job is to be a liaison between our agency and the areas that we represent. Stephanie in the back and I, we work with counties primarily. We do, in the past, I think we have been kind of a little more siloed, and we have been trying for the last few years to rectify that. So it is possible if someone were calling our office today, they're obviously not going to get Stephanie or I because we're here. But there are other directors, our city and town directors, our school and township directors, that will field questions and try to get answers and, even get back to us. So there's always someone will get back to you. We try to return the calls. We try to return them the same day, depending on how many we have. And we try to return the emails as quickly as possible, again, depending on where we are and what we're doing. There may be some delay on that, but we echo what Paul said. We're here for you. We will answer you. We will call you. We will take your calls. Please don't ever hesitate to ask us. There are no stupid questions. They don't exist for us. We don't get frustrated. We don't get angry. If we come across that way, I'll apologize in advance because we might be having a bad day, but we are here to help you guys, and that's what we want to do. So please remember that. I've been with the State Board of Accounts for 18 years. I've actually been with state government 35 years because I started when I was 2. I won't tell Stephanie how many years she's been, but she's been with State Board of Accounts longer than I have. So we have a lot of experience. We have worked in the field. We have worked in the office. I have audited cash books. I have audited clerks' offices, and so has Stephanie. So we know the county from both sides. So again, don't hesitate to contact us. What we were really trying to accomplish through this training today, and then with the breakouts on for the specific offices, is to give you some basic knowledge and some access to resources that can help you fulfill the responsibilities of your new office. There's a lot to learn. It can be overwhelming. This conference cannot give you everything you need to know so that you start January 1st with all of the knowledge. It's just impossible to do. What we hope is that we've given you the resources that when you have questions, you know where to turn to those. We want this today and for this hour, at least that I'm talking, and then tomorrow in the breakout sessions, and I told the recorders and clerks this yesterday, we want this to be as informal as possible. We welcome discussion. If you have questions, issues, don't hesitate to ask even during this time. Let's see. Housekeeping things. Okay. So again, if you don't get anything out of these 3 days or these 2 days, whichever 2 days you're here, and I hope you get a lot more out of it than this, but if you don't get anything out of this, please know that there is help out here. You are not alone. Don't spend a lot of time spinning wheels. You have the State Board of Accounts, you have DLGF, you have other state agencies, you have your associations, you have the AIC. We can find you answers. So please don't feel that you can't get through this. A lot of people have been in the same position you're in now. All of those that raised their hand as being brand new, they've succeeded, and you will too. We do need, which I think you've heard from everybody here, we do need to get your business emails when you know what they are. So if you can email Stephanie or I with that information, or call us and get it to us, we really need to do that. We send out most of our information via email through a mass emailing, so we need to have your current email. So bear that in mind. I know I've heard at least 4 people ask for those in the last 2 days, but we also need those. Okay. So what is the State Board of Accounts? We are the audit agency for the state. So we are the state CPA firm. We were created in 1909, as Paul stated, and we were created because there was rampant corruption in government. People had lost confidence in their government, both at the local and the state level. Fraud was wide-ranging. It was hitting the newspapers almost a daily basis. The legislators saw a need to create an entity that would look into the financial activity of government and make public what was found. And that's what we do. We're not an enforcement agency. We just publicly report if we find any issues that need to be reported. We audit all governmental units, including counties. We do cities, towns, schools, townships, state agencies, universities, county hospitals, licensed branches, libraries, and special districts. So everybody gets to know us at some point. For most counties, we will do your audit annually. We had gotten behind in the past. We have worked very hard this year to get our backlog cut up. We set some really high goals for ourselves, and we are on task to achieve those. That has required a lot of overtime for our people, which they have given, and we're really proud of that. Hopefully, once we get through this backlog, your audits then will be more current, because then they will be more relevant. Really, nobody wants to know what happened 3 years ago. They want to know what happened last year. So we are working very hard to get that in place. If your county has debt or plans to issue debt, or your county has expended more than $750,000 in federal grants in a year, you need an annual audit, and we will be performing that. There are a few counties that don't meet that threshold, and unless there are other risks, because we do a risk assessment in order to prioritize how we go out and do our audits, you may be a county that is audited less than annually. Just be aware of that. We complete a little over 3,000 audits, and this year we did more than that. Issue audit reports corresponding to what we find during the audits. These audits are done by our field staff. And that's why I was saying Stephanie and I have both been in the field. We've been field staff before. We will complete a financial audit, which is the audit of your financial statements, based on the annual financial report that's placed on a website called Indiana Gateway for Government Units. This is a public portal. It's a public website. If you've never been there, I strongly encourage you to go there. I have information on how to locate that, but you also can get it. There's a link on our website. There's a link on DLGF's website to that, and there's a lot of information on that website. But one of the things that is posted is the annual financial report for all of the political subdivisions for several years, so you can go back and look at a history of yours as well. It is a searchable database, so you just put in your county or city or whatever you want to look at and what year you're looking at, and it will bring up the reports for that. This is also, as I said, it's a public website, so if you have citizens coming in saying, hey, I have questions about something, point them here first, because they may be able to get the information they need without taking up your time on something, because it is your financial report. So let them know that it is available rather than have to print off a funds ledger for them, or not that you won't, but you know, it's a way to maybe divert some where they can get this information. We are also required to prescribe the accounting records for all government units to issue, and to issue audit standards everyone must follow. So there is something we call uniform compliance, accounting and uniform compliance guidelines. These are issued by our office. You can find those in our manuals, and you can find them in our bulletins. The manuals and bulletins are available on our website, and that is, as Wes pointed out, if you go to the state website /SBOA, you get to our homepage. You can Google it. I've done it before, so if you forget anything else, you can always go that way. Our manuals are not as up to date as we would like them to be. We are working on that, but not only updating them, but changing the format. When the manuals were first written and they've been revised over time, but they were written at a time that you didn't have ready access to the Indiana codes and a lot of the information. So they were hard copies we actually handed out. And over the last few years, along with everything else where resources, human resources have been scarce for our department, we have not been able to keep those as up to date on the codes. But you have access on the General Assembly website to the Indiana code itself. So I would always recommend, no matter what you see in a presentation or a manual or anything, if it references the statute, go to the statute and look at it. It could have changed. And make sure you're going to the source for that. That is not to say that the manuals don't have a lot of good information, because they do. Processes, procedures, policies, our uniform compliance guidelines, our audit positions on things are located in these manuals, so they're, and the bulletins, so that they are a good source of information. The bulletins are issued every quarter, and we have 10 years worth on the website. And again, there is a counties page that will have all of the county bulletins. There's a cities page that have the city bulletins, schools, etc. There is a topical index you can open and look for it by topic. You can also download the entire catalog of bulletins to your computer and use a search through a PDF search. And that's another way where you can go by keywords instead of just looking for a specific topic. If you can't find something, call us. We get calls and emails all the time. Where is this? We don't have a problem looking. We're a little quicker at getting through them, so we can get that information to you. So if it's not coming to you quickly, go ahead and let us know. Okay. Finally, we do prescribe the forms that are used for your accounting records. And those are there'll be examples of those in our manuals. Most are not using those. Some of those were actually written back in 1947. But very few people, that was the whole point of our passionate discussion on that. Software has replaced a lot of your manual records, especially for counties. So you probably have an approved form that's being used, that's generated, reports that are being generated by your software, whether it's receipts or checks or reports, financial information, and that's fine. We do not certify, at this point in time, we do not certify software systems. That is your decision which one you want to use. If you go to a new software system that you have not used before, you will need to get those alternate forms and reports approved. And there is a policy for that in the first chapter of any manual you open on how that gets done. This is really hard to read, but it is a flow chart of our organization. So the State Board of Accounts is organized as a bipartisan 3-member board made of the state examiners and 2 deputy examiners. Paul Joyce is the state examiner. He spoke this morning. He has 2 deputies, Mike Bazimski and Tammy White. Tammy used to be a director over county, so some of you are familiar with her name. She is one of our deputy examiners now. Each member of the board must be a CPA. The state examiner must have at least 5 years of accounting experience, including 3 years of federal audit experience. There cannot be more than 2 members of the same political party on the board. The board is appointed by the governor. The governor must submit the recommendation of appointment to the Legislative Council, which may accept or reject the recommendation. While the governor may remove the board members for incompetency, there is a petition process that may be pursued by the state examiner through the Legislative Council. And then further petition may be sought to the Marion County Circuit Court. All of this is done for independence. You'll hear that a lot when our staff is in. You can ask them questions. You can ask Stephanie and I questions. We're willing to consult. We're willing to help you. We're willing to brainstorm over anything. We are not management. We cannot write your policies for you. We can't approve your policies for you. That would impair our independence, and then we would not be able to audit. And we are the audit agency for the state. We have to be able to audit. So just keep that in mind. If you feel like if you're asking our field when they're out or with us, we're not as forthcoming. We can't do it for you. We'd be happy to discuss it, give you examples, and like I said, brainstorm, but we will not be able to issue a policy for you to adopt. You guys have to do the management side of that. Within the Legislative Council, there is a subcommittee that is referred to as the Audit Committee. We work with that Audit Committee. This gives us a voice into the legislators, and then gives the legislators a voice back to us as a kind of a conduit through that. You'll hear more about that in a little bit. We have groups of specialties. So there are two groups that you might see on site for during the audit process. The first is the audit group, and that's the one you're more likely to see. They do the federal audits, they do the financial audits, and the compliance auditing. We also have a special investigation unit that's fairly recent, within the last 5 years it's been developed. They will come in, if they come in, they will come in to target a specific issue, so they may only look at a very narrow part of the records. This can be because you've asked us to come in and look at something, because you've noticed there's a variance or an issue that you think needs further financial investigation. It could be because law enforcement has asked us to come in and look at something. It could be, sometimes it's a citizen complaint. Not everything they look at turns out to be something, so don't freak out when they show up, but they will be coming and looking, maybe targeting something in more in-depth and maybe over more than 1 year. Okay, and they also will issue a report if something is found on what is found. They can also charge, so if an official has been negligent or deliberately fraudulent in their activity, they can charge to try to recover what was taken, what was misappropriated or lost back into the unit's treasury. Okay. Within the audit, you'll have an audit team that's assigned to you. We have hired a number of new people. At one time, I think we were down to less than 200 people, which was less than a person, I think, or about one person per county to do all of those we talked about, all of those agencies that we audit, or units that we audit. Since then, we have increased that staff, and so we're back up close to 300 again. A lot of them are new because we had retirees at the same time, and so they're training. It takes at least 2 years before you really feel comfortable going around and auditing and doing it on your own. So all of those people are kind of getting on-the-job training. So first we ask that you be patient with them, because they may not know as much as you think they should because they're new, but they're learning, and they will learn. The other thing that you might note is that their teams are larger, so that we always have an experienced person there. There's a team leader for the audit team that you probably be working with quite a bit. And there is an audit manager that oversees several audits at the same time and will go from site to different audit sites to check in and do some review work and answer questions, do some additional training. So that these people aren't they're not out there in the cold. So we do support them. And the audit managers, you will probably see, they usually show up about once a week, depending on how many audits they're doing. The team leader will be there the whole time. The team will be there the whole time. Hopefully with the larger team, what we found out in this attempt to catch up the backlog is they don't tend to have to be there as long. So I know if you ask some of the more experienced people, it's felt like we camped out, just like took up residence in your courthouse. And we're not doing that as much anymore. We're trying to get it done as efficiently as possible, so we're not interrupting your work as well, getting those reports out timely. We talked about we have a central engagement that actually schedules the audits. They use a lot of information that comes in through the annual financial report, and there's another process we're going to have on Gateway that I'll talk about in a little bit to try to determine how to prioritize and get those engagements set out to get as much done as efficiently as possible. There's another few slides I'm going to go through pretty quickly. This is information that might find useful, so it's in your packet. Obviously, you can read it and understand it. What our address is, our fax number. Ways to reach the state examiner. He said you can call him. His phone number's right there. Both of the deputy examiners. Debbie, who was here earlier, she is over all of the directors, so she's our direct supervisor. And then Stephanie and I, we're all in bold because we kind of want you to go to us first. And Teresa's our administrative assistant, so she handles the calls and gets that information to us to make sure nobody gets pushed aside or forgotten. We do have a website we talked about. You will find our email addresses on that. And I went through this twice and I still made a mistake. Stephanie's email address is not correct on here because it's sheath@svoa.in.gov. I still have Shannon's email on there, although she's very good about forwarding those on to us, so if it doesn't work, she'll get it to us. But if you go to the website under our contact information, there's a link you can and it'll open up an email and have the address right in there to send to us. We've just listed some other contacts. Tara will be here tomorrow to talk to the auditors and treasurers. She's with the Auditor of State Office. They will deal with settlement, so that's an important one to know. DLGF, Wes already spoke. Secretary of State, we had representatives from their office yesterday to speak to the recorders. Judicial Administration, they deal a lot with the clerks. Treasurer of State. Department of Child Services, it works with both the auditors and the clerks on the 4D or child support program, so their contact information is there. Public Access Council, you're going to hear from late in a little bit, so I'll go on that. Indiana Archives and Record Administration, when we get a lot of questions about when can we destroy or get rid of, how long do we have to hold on to these records. And this website is a great source. It has the retention schedules on the website, so it's a great source to remember. So I've briefly already talked about that we do a financial audit where we put an opinion on your financial statements, whether they are materially correct. We do the federal audit where there's usually one or two major programs. There may be more that we audit to make sure you are in compliance with the federal grant agreement that you signed to receive that money. We've also talked a little bit about the investigative units, and they do issue reports based on what they find. And these are the engagements that we perform. So when I say our central engagement strategies, these are the ones they're scheduling out. During the audit, we do need access to your records and other information to complete the audit effectively. This may include records that have various laws would consider confidential and or proprietary. Our right to access that information is in statute. We will maintain confidentiality of that information. We are not going to release that to anyone. Our work papers are confidential, so that doesn't go beyond that. The report itself is public, but any work that we do is confidential. We hold an entrance conference with the fiscal officer for counties, that's your auditor. At the beginning of the engagement, the president of the commissioners or their designee and the president of the council or their designee would be invited to the entrance conference. We can't have everyone at the entrance conference because that will become a public meeting. But the fact that we are here auditing should not be a big dark secret. So, you can mass email out everybody, we're here. Make sure all of your governing board is aware because we want a two-way communication. We want to know if you have issues you would like us to look at. And the exit conference is not the time to tell us, we really wish you would have looked at this. The entrance or shortly thereafter is the best time to get that information if you haven't already submitted it. And Stephanie and I have put in a data file for our field. But if something has come up and you want them to look at something, you need to get a hold of them when they start the audit. Okay. Once the audit process is, as we go through the audit process, we will prepare a preliminary audit report that will include any findings that we have. Those findings should be discussed with you. It affects your office. We're not going to discuss within the different offices. The governing board is always included in that. The auditor, because they do the financial statements, but we would have a separate conference with the treasurer for information or anything that we found in the treasurer's office that we think needs to be brought to the treasurer's attention. Same thing for the clerk or the recorder or the sheriff or whoever whatever department has those issues. It's very important, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, I think, that you take corrective action on any issues that we find. So it's very important that you understand them. You know, there has to be a reason that this non-compliance or this finding, it exists. It is not just because we're having a bad day or we don't like it. There has to be a statute. There has to be a uniform compliance guideline, a federal law, a federal grant agreement, your own local ordinances, something that says it should have been done a certain way and it wasn't done, that we're bringing it to you. We try to, now, because of these corrections, we do try to categorize our findings. So it may be a verbal, where we just discuss it with you and say, yeah, this wasn't a big deal, but it could become a big deal. We just want to bring your attention to it. That is just between the field staff and you on that. We might do a management letter. If we think the governing boards need to be aware of this, we will issue a management letter, which is a little more than just the verbal discussion. It will be in writing. It is not a public document. We don't release it or put it on our website, but it is that way given to both the office holder and the council and the commissioner so that they are aware of what that issue is. If it's substantial enough, then it will be included in an audit report, and the audit report is a public document. It is on our website. You can go and look at prior years for your county to see what issues, and we encourage you to do that, see what issues have been found. And corrections should be made on those issues, no matter what level they are. The exit conference is held, again, with the fiscal officer, then with each official or department head that has findings in the report. The governing board may attend the exit conference. If all of them attend, then it becomes an executive meeting of the governing board. So it is not a public meeting. No information provided at the exit should be released to the public prior to the release of the audit report. You can discuss it amongst yourselves, but you cannot record the meeting. You cannot release this information to the press. You cannot discuss it at a public meeting. You have to keep it confidential until the report itself is released. Part of the reason for that is the report gets 2 field reviews. It comes into the office, and right now Stephanie and I review it. And a board member will sometimes review it. We can make changes in it. So the information isn't official until that report is released, and that's why we ask that you keep it confidential. Okay, I think I've already talked about some of this. I got a little out of order here. The financial report, when you pull up your previous, if you go to our website and pull up the audit reports, there's a financial and federal audit report. In the past, might have been called a single audit report. That is going to have your financial statements, our opinion, and any findings we had on the federal. There is a separate supplemental report, and it will say supplemental when you're pulling it up, so there might be 2 for the same year. The supplemental report pulls the federal findings and then any findings for a department, and they are in there by department. So if you want to see if your office had any findings in the past, you want to look at that supplemental report. And as I said, if you have any findings, those need to be corrected because you are new officials going in. One hopes that your predecessor has already started some of that corrective action, and in the best of all possible worlds, we'll leave for you the direction they were going and how they were implementing that correction. We realize that may not be reality. So if you have issues, you have questions, again, let Stephanie and I know. And we will be glad to discuss with you any issues are there, corrective measures, brainstorming, again, anything that you might need to try to take correction on those. Okay. And as I said at the exit, they should go over each finding, and that's your opportunity to really understand what was wrong and what needs to be corrected. And keep in mind, you can disagree with us. This is our audit position, and you are managing your county. You could disagree and think, that is not the way we want to go with this. You can do an official response to the report. That's always available to you. That official response will appear in the report, and you can explain why you disagree with the position that we have taken. As we said, some of this then gets up to the audit committee, to the legislative council. It may be that the law isn't working the way it was intended and may need change. But you do have the right to say, I don't agree with that. But we don't want you to get out of the exit saying, I don't understand that. You need to make sure you understand it. So ask enough questions at the exit that you know what is wrong, and you can make a decision whether or not, hopefully, that you're going to correct it, the specific statute, or what compliance you are not, what guidance you are not in compliance with. One of the things that's been new this past year is the repeat comment law. If we come in and do an audit and have a finding, and we come in a subsequent audit, and that finding has not been corrected, so basically the same or very similar situation exists. So if we come in and the office holder is not reconciling, and we come back in a year and they're still not reconciling, that becomes a repeat comment. Those require a written corrective action plan that you have to submit to our office. So that's more than just correcting it. You're going to have to work with us on that unless you're disagreeing, and then it will go to the audit committee. If you come into office again and there was a repeat comment, it would only have been in the last year, and you have questions about that, call Stephanie or I, because we currently are reviewing all of the corrective action plans. So if you don't have a copy of it or you don't know what it is, again, those are not public documents. Those are internal within your office. Be sure and let us know. Indiana Code 5-11-1-27 has a lot of information in it. In subsection J, it requires that all erroneous or irregular material variances, losses, shortages, or thefts of local property shall be reported immediately to the State Board of Accounts. Material is up for your county to decide. You have a policy that says what is considered material. It's going to vary from county to county. If you do not have the policy, then material is zero. We really encourage you to have a policy because we really don't want to hear every time a cash drawer is $1 short. But the point is to let us know when you're having problems. So if your office is not able to reconcile, if you have variances you just can't figure out, you need, and those are material, you need to report those to us, and that's in the statute. There is a directive, and those are available on our website as well, issued by our state examiner. It's 2015-6, and it provides guidance, a little bit of guidance in determining what kind of threshold you should set, and what kind of things to think about to do that. So there's some additional information on that. When you go to L, in that same section, if you have actual knowledge or a reasonable cause to believe that there has been a misappropriation of public funds or assets, you are required to report that to the State Board of Accounts and to your prosecuting attorney. There is no materiality level on this. If you believe, you have reason to believe, a reasonable cause to believe, or you actually know it's happened, you are to report that. That will trigger what I talked about with the special investigations. They will go in and investigate. Maybe they won't find anything. Maybe they will. But you are required to report it to the State Board of Accounts and to the prosecuting attorney. So even if you report it to law enforcement, it's very, very important that you follow through with us. This will be a finding. If we come in, even if you've resolved it, you called your local sheriff, you did an investigation, you found the person, you fired it, you got the money back, but you never reported it to us, it's still a finding. You have to let us know about these. So it's very, very important. Internal controls. Some of you have already heard this before. Stephanie will be laughing at me. I love internal controls. I can talk for hours on them, be happy to, have done it, will do it in the future. You have any questions? You will not find that even for most of our field examiners are going to roll their eyes on internal controls. I happen to love them. I think it's a fascinating topic, and I'm more than willing to discuss them and brainstorm on them. You are required, the same statute, 5-11-127, I said there's a lot in it. You are required now by law to adopt a policy, all of your counties should have already done this, to adopt a policy that you will use the minimum internal control standards, and that you will ensure your personnel, and this is, personnel means anyone who receives money, disperses money, posts to the record, reconciles the record, or in any other way has access to your funds, receives training on internal controls. And this is on the internal control standards themselves. You can find information on our website. There are several ways to get through this. We do have a manual there that I helped write. It's really, really good. On internal controls that you can read. I won't say it's riveting, but, well, it is to me, but it won't be to you. But it has a lot of good information. The first part just talks about the internal controls. It has a part 2 that has things to consider when working on your own internal control policies and procedures, examples of control activities when you're like payroll or disbursements or receipts, the kinds of things you need to be keeping in mind. And then the last part actually has, we've taken information from actual audit reports where something went wrong, money got misappropriated or stolen, what kind of controls were not in place, and what might have helped to prevent this. So it gives you a concrete, real-life example on how those internal controls work. There is also a video on there where Shannon, who was the director with me on counties before she went back to the field, she does a webinar on there about internal controls. That is training. So if you watch that webinar, it takes about 20 minutes. It goes over the same information that's in the manual. That is a source of training. As you come in to office, as you hire new staff, they need to be trained on this. So just keep that in mind. Okay. And again, hopefully, and we have encouraged that the offices establish internal control specific to their office. So this is where they're writing the actual policy and procedures. You know, one employee will, these employees will collect the money, but someone else will balance the cash drawer. Someone else will take the deposit. I mean, these kinds of controls are in place. These procedures are set up. Hopefully they've done them in writing, and hopefully you'll be able to find them, because we really don't want you to have to start all over again. But bear in mind, even if they do exist, which I hope they do, this is a living document for us, so it can be modified as you get new technology, as you hire new staff, as you lose staff. You need to always be looking at that and seeing what kind of changes you need to make in those policies and procedures. We will be asking you on those. If they're in writing, then we'll ask to see them in writing. If we don't have them in writing, we'll be interviewing you. So again, a little incentive to get some of that down in writing to save a little more of your time when we're out on the audit. Okay. It is very, very common when you're looking at our audit reports to find the phrase, there was a significant deficiency in internal control. You're going to find it all over the state, all over the different political units. What that means is you need to be looking at those internal controls. It is possible, and we talk about this as internal control, it's possible to have absolutely no internal controls and everything go right. And it may have been happening for years. You just have really good people, and they're really self-motivated, and they're really good at following and getting things done. What the controls do, it's almost impossible to have a theft without there being a lack of controls. And so what we do in pointing out the deficiencies in internal controls is letting you know that there's a place that an error may occur and not be detected, or money may be misappropriated and not detected, and that you need to beef up those controls. That protects you as the office holder, it protects your employees. I can't say enough about internal controls, although most of you will agree I can say too much. If you have any questions, give me a call. Okay. So, is there anything that you need to do between now and when you take office? Absolutely. The more that you can do to get yourself ready, the better off you'll be. This training is a start. For those of you that your offices are required to get a certain number of professional education hours, 15 in the first year and 40 over the next 3 years. This training counts towards that. So this training is a start. Start looking at the manuals. I know they're not the most interesting reading in the world, but start looking through them, see what's available in them, see if there's information that you might have cause you to have questions or again, start a conversation. If possible, talk and communicate with your current official. Hopefully it's an easy transition, a smooth transition, but you want to discuss that with them, discuss the transition itself. They are, by law, to give you the records, so they can't destroy them before you get into office. And really, like I said, we really hope it is a smooth transition, because what's best for your county is really what you're thinking about now, not get the personal feelings aside and just what is going to be the best transition for your county. Get in the office if you can, see how things are being done. Again, keep in mind internal controls, see how processes are there, what you might want to change, what you might want to keep. And again, Stephanie and I echo what Paul said, do not go in and fire everybody in your office. There may be personnel policies that prevent that as well, but you don't want to start day one with brand new staff and try to figure out how to do a payroll or how to do a bank rec or how to get something recorded. You really want to keep the staff that you have and work with them. Again, over time, you may find out that it isn't the best fit, and you might have to make adjustments, but we just recommend don't go in and just get rid of everybody. Okay. Stamps. If you need a stamp, there are stamp vendors. I'm sure they're right out there. Contact them to get signature stamps, file stamps, whatever kind of stamps you need. Find out how your county does the oath of office and make sure you get included in that. You do have to take an oath before you start. We've heard discussion on that today. Find out what insurance agent writes the official bonds for your county. Start getting yours ready, because you have to have that bond recorded. Unless you're the recorder, in which case it goes in the clerk's office. Find out how many bank accounts your office has. Where are they located? You want to know all of that you are responsible for. Same for investments. There should be an investment register that tells you where money is invested. You should be making arrangements with your current officer to be there the last business day to count cash, inventory investments, and inventory assets, because that is going to go from their responsibility to your responsibility, and you both want to agree exactly on what's getting transferred over. Okay. Make arrangements to receive the keys to your office. You want to be able to get in. If there is a safe, find out if there's a combination to that. Find out where your records are stored. You'll need to set up computer access, including logout and email, and I can't even keep track of the number of places that you want to make sure you have this information and that you're getting this information. Email addresses to us, to your association, to AIC, to courts, the list goes on and on. So make sure that you know where you need to be able to access information. Start thinking about your staff, how you want to possibly arrange it, who you want to do what. Okay. Again, with the resources, you go to our website, which is /SBOA on the state website. Under political subdivisions, under counties, you can find the accounting and compliance guideline manual we talked about for a specific office. If you link onto the office, there's auditor, treasurer, clerk, recorder, sheriff, I think currently. Then you can get the specific manuals and bulletins for them. We have an area called best practices. Unfortunately, the last couple of years, we haven't been able to keep that up as much as we would like, and we're hoping, now that we've got the backlog caught up, that we'll get some more information out to you. So that's another place to look for best practices on internal controls, on credit cards, on purchasing policies, things like that. Meeting materials. We do post the materials, the presentations for our state-called meetings on our website so that you have them before the meeting. Not this one, but because that wouldn't have worked, but for your annual conferences. So this is the place you would go to see that. We have several years on there. If you want to look back and just review what was discussed in the last few years, those presentations are there. It's a lot of good information in that. Indiana Code if you go to the Indiana General Assembly, the iga.in.gov, you have access to the code itself. And again, I cannot stress how important it is. If you want to know what it says, go to the code and read it for yourself. If you have questions about it, or it's not clear, or want to find out what our audit position is, be sure and contact Stephanie and I. We'd be glad to discuss that with you. Do not be intimidated by it. I know it's law, but you can read it and understand it even if you don't have a law degree, because I do, and I don't have a law degree. So learn how to use it. A lot of our web pages on our website have some common statutes locations. So if you go to compensation and expand that menu, they'll tell you which site or which section that you want to look at for that particular information. And it is a lot easier than searching it by a keyword to just put in the actual code that you want, like 11.15.27 that we talked about. It also, during the session, it will tell you what bills are being considered and what they currently look like. So there's a lot of good information on that page. Okay. There are educational opportunities. We have State Board of Accounts called conferences for all of the offices, at least annual. The auditors, we actually do twice a year, although we're working on a slightly different format that we'll talk about tomorrow for the next couple years for one of those meetings. You've already heard about the AIC annual conference, their workshops. Your affiliate district meetings are also a good place to learn, especially from your fellow office holders who have probably encountered a lot of what you're going through and can be a good resource to figure out how you want to deal with an issue. Other state agencies have conferences, DLGF, Auditor of State, Treasurer of State, they will have conferences as well that are educational opportunities. Okay. This first one seems pretty straightforward, but we really can't stress this enough. You are dealing with other county offices, so please, please, please understand the need to cooperate. I am not kidding, probably the biggest, most prevalent question we get is, they won't let me do what I want to do, and you can put anybody in the they and the I. Councils or commissioners, auditor, treasurer, clerk, it goes, sheriff, it goes on and on and on. So please, you want county government to work for your citizens, so you need to cooperate with each other to the extent possible to make that work. So you may be right. And call us, and we'll be glad to give you our audit position on that. But sometimes you need to compromise to make things work. But just be aware, you're working with each other. You're going to have to make it work. If your auditor needs certain things to process payroll or to process claims, make sure they have what they need. Okay, that's an example. Okay. You will be dealing with the press on occasion. I don't like that part. But understand it is part of the job. Just be prepared for it. Kind of make up a game plan in your head how you're going to deal with it. Just be aware how you're going to approach that. Please remember your new role is in public service. I think that's been expressed several times this morning. The reason that we have county government is to provide these services to your citizens in the best, most efficient way possible. It's why you exist. It's why we exist at the state level as far as our citizens as well. It's a very important trust that they put in you, and you do not want to betray that trust. You will, without a doubt, at some point have to deal with angry people. Expect it. Prepare to it. They will not be at their best. They may not even be listening to you while you're trying to explain something. Okay. So, however, be sure that you have procedures in place, and think about that. We discussed this in several conferences in the last few years. Emergency procedures. Who do you call? Where do you go? In today's environment, it's a dangerous place, and government buildings are a source for people who are very angry with the world and their life to try to take it out on you. And we don't want that to happen to you or to your employees. So make sure you put that as a priority on your list to make sure you know procedures to keep yourself safe. Please return phone calls. Just as Paul said, if you call us and we don't call you back or can't take that call, it's frustrating. So in the same way, when your citizens call you, try to return. You may not always be able to help them, but be sure to return phone calls, refer them to other assistance if they need it, but just don't shut down. We do get calls from citizens, some of them probably valid, some of them not, saying they just won't talk to me. And that could be because they're not listening anymore. I understand that, but just be aware and try to be available as much as possible. Because this is government and not a business, there are higher rules of expectations. You will hear, I've worked for the state for 35 years, you will hear the phrase, "I pay your salary." It will drive you crazy. It's true. It will drive you crazy, but in some ways, that's where their frustration is coming from. So make sure you understand you really exist to serve all of them, not this particular person, but all of them in general. Keep that in mind so you have a little higher level of expectation. You are elected to an office pretty much 24/7. We often get a call, especially at the end of the year, about an urban myth that you only have to work 1 hour a year. There's nothing in statute that says that. You're pretty much there 24/7. You need to get the job done, okay? If you're never in the office, you may never get your job done. So we expect the office to be open, the businesses, services to be provided. Okay. So it says, public office is a public trust. Officials and employees should serve the people with responsibility, integrity, loyalty, and efficiency. So we get it. It's scary. There's a lot to learn, a lot. I mean, I don't think from a lot of you even realize how much you have to learn until you get in the middle of everything that's expected of you. Please do not be overwhelmed. You will get through it. It will get done. Mistakes can be corrected. Okay. It's always, when you're first starting out, you're going to have those feelings when you take on a new job. So we understand that. There are a lot of people here that are willing to help you, from your fellow office holders, within your association, up through our state agencies, through your AIC contacts. There's help out there. We will get it. And Steffi and I will talk you down. So if you just need somebody to calm you down, I have done that more than enough. We'll get you through it. Don't worry about it. So don't hesitate to ask. You're not alone. We're here for you. Again, thank you for your public service. It is highly appreciated. We look forward to working with you in the future. Look forward to talking to you, to learning about you and you learning about us. And again, I hope you get a lot from today and tomorrow, and I hope the people that attended yesterday got a lot from yesterday. So thank you so much for your attention this morning. And enjoy your day, and don't forget, call us.